the, let me just get that. I didn't really want to bore everyone with the methodologies and the theory on project management. So I just thought of taking this in a different way. I'm sure Akin will actually go through the theory and the different methodologies that you can actually use in project management. So just to introduce myself, my name is Dina Zimba. I've actually been a PM and Scrum Master for more than 5 years. I've worked in a wide range of industries. I've worked in aviation, finance, consultancy, and I'm now currently in construction. I'm in the Middle East at the moment. It's about 10 o'clock our time this time. So I recently joined a project last week in the Middle East. Methodologies I've actually used Prince2, other waterfall methodologies. So you will find clients who have actually got like methodologies tailored to their organization. I've also been a Scrum Master in an Agile environment, and I've also used both Agile and waterfall called Wagile. Has anyone got any questions at the moment before I go to the rules of thumb? I just want to have this as interactive as possible. I'm not going to stay up to the end of this call. No questions? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
go on
thank
ahead.
you. I'm Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
So, hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Long time.
So, yeah. So what's your role?
My role at the moment, I'm a project manager. So I work in a portfolio of which has actually got like more than 60 projects, and I'm managing 4 of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. With project management, you will learn quite a lot of theory, but the actual experience starts when you're actually working on a project. Now, every project is different. I'm not going to lie to you to say, you know, when you get on a project, you've got to do A, B, C, D, but there's just a few informal rules of thumb when you actually start working on a project. One thing is, the first thing is for you to actually create clarity on your scope. You really need to understand the scope that you're actually working on. The reason for this is because you're actually going to be working with a lot of different stakeholders. You're going to have a business analyst that you're actually going to be managing as well. It's really there shouldn't be any ambiguity. It should actually be very, very clear in your head what you're actually going to deliver with your stakeholders. Now, when you start your project, there's actually going to be a million things for you to do. There'll be reading of documentations, there'll be meeting, you know, you're going to have a lot of meetings. Sometimes you'll find yourself in meetings the whole day, but you still have to actually produce some kind of documentation, one form or another. You actually need to learn to actually prioritize your work. One thing that's actually helped me is actually the Richard Branson approach. You can actually look it up to see how to actually prioritize things. So you might, for example, if you had like 10 things on your to-do list, you need to focus on the top 3. What are the top 3 really important things for you to do in that day? Such that if like a portfolio manager or program manager asked you, you can actually tell them to say, I've actually done these 3 things. But at the same time, you need to be clear with your portfolio manager or whoever you're actually reporting to that you can't actually do everything on that list. So you need to actually trade off. Don't pretend that you can actually do everything, because you're actually setting yourself up for failure when you actually do that. As I said, every project is actually different. When you actually get on a client side, you will find that there's actually some learning gaps. There's actually something that you actually need to learn yourself. I would actually advise you to actually create a personal gap analysis to identify your learning gaps. And then every time in the evening or at the weekend, just go through your gap analysis to see where you actually need some more maybe training or help or anything. You know, it could be YouTube, for example. It could be something to do with the methodology that you're using, maybe Prince2. You'll find that, you know, there's certain things that you actually need to learn. You know, just brush up on those things, but at least you've actually got somewhere where you're actually taking down, looking at what your strengths are, your weaknesses are as well. Always remember to actually set clear expectations as well with the clients, with the project managers, with the portfolio managers, or whoever you're actually reporting to. Make sure that you've actually set up clear expectations. Sorry, something's actually come up. Right, okay. There's actually a question. It says, as a PM, how many projects do you handle at once? At the moment, I've actually got 4. So I started last week and I've actually got 4. And they were coming in at different times. And they're completely different projects with different requirements and different priorities. So we rank projects in 3 different priorities, like low, medium, and high. And I've actually got 2 high and 2 medium projects. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dina.
All right, thank you. Caroline is asking, are they for the same client? Yes, they are. So I'm actually working under the same portfolio. So a portfolio would actually have like different sectors. So it's different to a program. So a program would actually have multiple projects under it, but a portfolio would actually have, for example, back office. It would have like HR, it would have finance. So there's actually within those different sectors, there's actually a lot of different projects. I'm actually in the Middle East at the moment. Okay. Right, I'll just continue with the presentation, if that's okay. So with regards to setting up clear expectations as well, it's just to help you as a project manager to actually guide you so that you can actually produce what is expected of you. What is it that they actually want? Do they want a high level plan and you keep the detailed plan? Do they want reporting every week, or is it a monthly reporting? It will actually help you plan your communication strategy as well. How often do you need to actually communicate with the project team? It will actually help you as well once you have your clear expectations, it will actually help you build up your RACI document as well, because you actually know what your stakeholders want. On projects, always anticipate critical situations. There will be like issues on projects. You never avoid that. But you actually need to be quick to raise risks and issues. Don't be scared. Don't be scared to actually raise it. It doesn't matter who's in the meeting, whether it's the CEO or whoever, just raise it to say, I've got a concern about A, B, C, D, and I think this is actually going to be a risk. Sometimes they'll brush it off to say, you know, that's not a risk, we can actually manage it. But you as a project manager, you need to actually make that decision to say, okay, fine, you're saying this is not a risk, but I'm just going to log it in the risk log to make sure that we actually have something to actually remind us that there's actually a risk, even though it's actually low level, but it's just to remind everyone that we've actually got this risk that we actually need to manage. I've actually joined projects where they've actually said that there's no risks, and it's actually impossible to work on a project without any risks. So I'd actually advise all of you guys going into project management, 2 things: make sure that you actually raise your risks and issues. Another point I would like to raise is that know your stakeholders and manage them well. You will find that when you join a project, you'll be told who the stakeholders are at high level, but There will be stakeholders that, because you're actually new, you don't know the organization, you don't know how they work. So it's up to you to actually understand their processes, who you need to work with, their approval processes, who needs to actually be involved in that project. Are there any external stakeholders? That's your job. It's no one's job. No one is actually, sometimes you'll be lucky with who you're actually working with. They can actually give you like a whole list of stakeholders. But as a project manager, it's your job to find out who you need to work with on that project. And you need to actually build that relationship and manage them really well. Otherwise, if you have like angry stakeholders, you're just making your life really difficult. And another thing that I'd like to emphasize is that there's no such thing as a silly question. Ask questions. Where you don't understand, it does not matter. They can actually have a presentation. They tell you about the scope, the requirements. If it's not clear to you, ask the question. It does not matter whether it's 10 times. Just ask it to say you don't understand. No one is actually going to judge you. We all understand things differently. But the success of the project is actually, based on you understanding things really, really well. Thank you. And this is it. I think I've actually got like 15 minutes. Is that right, Akin? I've actually gone over by maybe a few minutes, but
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Actually, it's like 20 minutes. Any questions for Dina, actually? Whether you want to ask about what the market
hi,
is really
Dina.
like. Yeah, go on.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Joanne. I have a question.
Yep.
So in a project, how do you determine what the difference between a high or low level risk? How do you determine?
For the high, low level, what do you mean? Sorry.
How do you know what risk is high level or what risk is low level? How do you determine that? What are the factors that helps you determine which is high and which is low? When it comes to risk?
When it comes to risk, so any risk which is actually going, if it became an issue, it's actually going to stop the project. That's really high.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll actually give an example. So let's say you're actually working on a data project and the company regulations is that you cannot share data on, let's say you cannot migrate data onto, you cannot share data with other companies, for example. I'll give you with the GDPR, for example, with the GDPR in the UK. Yeah. So let's say you actually identify a risk which is actually going to impact the GDPR.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a high level risk. Because if you actually don't, you're not compliant with GDPR, the organization is actually going to be fined millions of pounds. Yeah. So that is actually a high risk.
Okay.
So a low risk will be something that is actually manageable. It won't have much impact. But if you actually left it, maybe it might be low impact at the beginning of your project, but as you actually progress, it might actually be a high risk. So it's something that you're actually managing at the beginning. It doesn't have like a cost implication. It won't actually like stop the project and things like that.
Okay.
So you actually determine it like that. And this is the reason why risk management as a project manager is really, really important. Because if that risk became an issue, certain issues can actually stop the project. Imagine you've actually spent like $500,000 and the project is actually stopped. The client will be really, really annoyed with you as a project manager.
Okay.
Because as a project manager, let me just tell you my experience with project management. So when the project goes well, it's implemented, it's our project. Yeah, everyone is happy. Yes, our project has actually gone well. We've all done well as a team. When the project goes wrong, it's on you.
Project.
It's on you and you will feel lonely at that time. Nothing to do, it's not personal, so don't take it personal. It is a learning curve. You will have people around you, but obviously they're actually annoyed that things are actually going wrong. But, and this is the reason why you've actually got to to actually really manage things like your risks, your issues, ask questions when you're not very clear, set your clear expectations, because all these things are actually going to help you in managing that project. So your rule of thumb, remember, when things are going well, we are a team, but if things go wrong, it's on you as a project manager. Not personal, but it's just how things are.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dana. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, I have a question. How many people do you manage in your team?
So at the moment, I'm managing a third party, a supplier. There are about 10 different people in that team, but I'm actually liaising with their architect, their project manager, and their designer in one of the projects. Within our client scope, there's actually like 8 of us. So it actually depends with a project, with every project is actually different.
So do you also, second question, do you have a name for this Richard Branson method that you spoke about earlier on? Do you have a name for the method? Is it just Richard Branson approach?
Yeah,
or what?
Richard Branson approach. Yeah, just Google it
Okay.
and look at his leadership style on how he actually prioritizes things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but every project will be different. You're going to manage teams of maybe like 10, 15. I haven't really managed like really, really large teams. I've actually been lucky in that way, but you will have like people from security, not really managing per se, but you'll be working with a lot of different stakeholders. And if you're actually working on programs, you'll find that there's actually a lot of dependencies as well. So you're actually working with a lot of different people.
So also it depends on the industry you're working as a project manager as well.
Yeah, it depends with the industry. It depends with the size of the organization and the size of the project as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is maybe so many. My name is Emmanuel. For a project management person,
yeah,
what is the one thing from your experience you would say, for example, you would say concentrate on this part, or this is like the one thing you should always have in mind, or the one thing that you have to do first, aside the asking of questions and other things, for those of us who don't have experience yet, but we are getting the experience? What's the one thing that you would say we should focus on 90% of the time?
Right. So I would advise you, if you actually started a new project, like let's say Monday, you're starting a new project, make sure that you're actually given all the information that you need on that project. You will find maybe like 70% of the time, they don't give you most of the information. You have to keep on asking. But you need to understand the project at high level. So for example, I work in a portfolio. The first thing I requested for last week was to actually understand this portfolio. What are we doing as a portfolio before I actually get to my project? What's the portfolio strategy? And then from that, I requested for the project information. And then I started reaching out to people to actually get more information about the project. Check with, if you've got a PMO, you'll be lucky if you've actually got a PMO team. So project management office who are setting up governance and things like that. If you've actually got that team, it makes your life easy because you can go to that team to find out about the processes and what that PMO expects you to do on a project. So there's quite, I can't really say, I can't pinpoint one thing. It's sort of like you're actually working in parallel of different things.
Okay.
Yeah. But just make sure that you understand, you know, the scope, understand the processes, what they're actually expecting of you. Because if you actually miss that, you might miss like a stage gate, and people will be calling you to find out, why is this milestone missing, and you haven't, you haven't looked at that.
Okay.
So in parallel, you should reach out to a lot of different people, find out their processes. What is the process on this project? What methodology are we actually using? Are you using your own methodology? Is it Prince2? Is it like a combined agile waterfall methodology? Just find out all those things as you actually starting. As a project manager, you will be lucky when you're actually starting, because you find that at the beginning, they'll give you some leeway to actually be reading stuff, meeting people and things like that. And that's the time that you actually gather all this information and put everything together to actually help you start working. But if you're not lucky from day one, you might be working on 100 miles per hour. You just, yeah, it happens. Every organization is different, but these are the sorts of things that you need to start thinking of when you actually get into this job. Processes, your stage gates, your approvals, who are you working with, the scope of the project, understanding the project environment in that organization, expectations of you as a project manager.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you very much. Because why I asked that question is I kind of, from the top of my head, mostly when we had these our trainings and all, I understood from it, I am understanding from it that if you're dealing with a construction project, I feel you should have to read so much about the construction project, what is obtainable, what you need to do. And I don't know if I'm right, but that's what I just feel, because if you're doing the construction project, it will be different from when you're doing something that has to do with software. It will be different from when you're having to do something that has to do with programming or whatever. But in all, you just have to know what to ask and what to look forward to. And sorry, the second part, I don't know if it's involved in this. I'm seeing Scrum Master. What does that mean?
Okay, so I'll start with your first question. If you look at my experience, it's actually different areas. So I've been in airline, finance, consultancy, and now construction. All different industries, completely different, but I've actually been working in these industries. You actually need to build your skills. You do need to know about the industry, but not as a subject matter expert. There's people for that in the project. There will be people who are subject matter expert in that area. I'll give you, for example, airline. There was quite a lot of projects in there that I didn't understand. I didn't even know, I didn't even know like the different names of aeroplanes. But I was working in there, in the organization. But there were people who actually put on the project who actually understand everything on that level. So your job is actually to make sure that those subject matter experts bring in the right information for your project to be a success. So you will work closely with the subject matter expert, because they'll be able to identify areas that you don't know. I've worked on IT projects as well. You're going to have a software engineer or a software lead or whatever they're called nowadays. Those are experts in that field. So they will be able to say, okay, fine, the architecture design here, we can't do A, B, C, D because of, all these things. You don't need to know, the ins and outs of IT, but you should be able to actually identify and ask questions to say, if this happens, if we don't do this, what's actually going to happen? So you need to actually sharpen your questioning skills. Because sometimes some people you have to sort of like, get things out of them. But because you don't understand, and this is why it's really important to actually ask questions. The last question, the last bullet point I've actually put on here. Always ask questions. If you're on a project and you find that you're actually struggling a bit, talk to your stakeholders to say, I need an expert in this area. I understand a little bit, but I need someone who can actually tell me what's actually going on in this area, an expert, and they'll bring you someone. There's no way that they've invested like thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds and they won't bring you someone to actually help you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm grateful.
Okay, thank you. And what was the second question? Oh, Scrum Master. Okay, quickly. So Scrum Master, so agile projects, I don't know how much training, how far you've actually gone with the training, but with agile, there's no project manager. You actually have a Scrum Master where you actually, you're not really managing everyone, but you're actually helping them to actually work in an agile way. So they call them an agile coach. So you're sort of like helping, making sure that the sprints are within a certain time, making sure that the roles are well defined, and you're actually escalating things, that kind of thing. I won't go much into detail with agile. I'll leave that to your trainer to actually go through that with you guys, but look it up. Scrum Master is different to project management. So project management, you're managing people, but Scrum Master, you're not managing anyone. You're actually sort of like a coach in the agile Scrum environment.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dina.
Hello.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
For us newcomers that are new in this field,
yeah,
and knowing fully well that the job market is very competitive these days now. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give us, please?
Number one advice is that no one knows your strengths. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. When you go on the client side, I say, be confident. Don't show them your weaknesses. Yeah. Ask questions. And also just do your homework on things like methodology. I remember working on one project and we had someone who, for some reason, I don't know why, we were talking about risks and issues and they actually made a mistake. I think it was a mistake anyway. They made a mistake and called an issue a risk. The portfolio manager wasn't really happy and they actually got rid of them to say that they don't know what they're doing. So maybe there was other issues, I don't know. But anyway, for me, I just thought that, they were just caught out. So just make sure that you know the language in project management. When do you raise an issue? An issue is something that's actually happening. A risk is something that's actually might potentially happen. Make sure that you just familiarize yourself with the language and just be confident. No one knows, where you're coming from. No one knows what you're actually capable of. We're actually all learning. I'm actually learning. I'm in construction at the moment. Never worked in construction, but here I am. So just be confident. You can do this. Don't let anyone tell you that you cannot do this job. You can do this job. 110%. I can tell you, I've actually been where you are right now. Where I didn't know much about project management. I started as PMO, working in governance, setting up governance. And then one day, the portfolio manager just decided to say, oh, we're actually short on project managers. Do you want to manage a project? I never had any experience in project management, but that's how I actually started, So you can do this. Yeah.
Thank you so
Don't
much.
doubt yourself. You can do
All right,
this.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Final question from Adeyemi so that we can move on. So Adeyemi, ask a question.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dina.
Good evening.
Can I verify, as a Scrum Master, what kind of documentations do you keep aside managing the stakeholders involved with the project and being the liaison person, in the project? What other documentations do you keep?
So if you learn about Agile, we are told that there's little documentation on an Agile project. In reality, it depends with the organization that you're actually working with. So I was Scrum Master where the organization was actually heavily regulated, and there was quite a lot in requirements in cybersecurity. So I had to actually produce that documentation, otherwise we were actually not going live. So even though it was actually an Agile, little documentation, I still needed to do that. So it's sort of like, it depends with the organization and what they actually want from you as a Scrum Master. Yeah, that's all I can say. But there should be little documentation, but at the same time, you've actually got to be compliant with the organization requirements. So every organization is different. You'll find certain organizations, there's very little documentation that they want you to do, but they will guide you. They'll actually have some guidance.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just advise you on this as well, most of these methodologies are really guidance only. I've only worked in one organization where we actually use Prince2, textbook. Basically, we were following the textbook in that organization, but everywhere else I've actually worked, most of these methodologies are just guidance for you to sort of like look at things like stage gates, guide you, if you need like certain documentation and things like that. So it's good to know the methodologies, but when you actually get on site, you find that you're not using these methodologies. Don't be surprised, don't be alarmed. They're just there to actually guide you, but just follow what how the organization is actually working on these projects. Because you're not there to actually change how they're working with the methodologies. You're just there to actually manage their expectations, really, and manage their projects.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dina. We really appreciate, and I think one way or the other, you've been able to clarify one or two things. Yeah. So we really do appreciate, and we hope probably if we call on you in the future as well, you answer us probably when we have more time to talk about, to go more in depth into this. But really appreciate. Probably we should leave you to go and have your rest now. Thank you so much for honoring the invitation. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. And I wish you good luck. I'm sure, just make sure that you actually have, lift up your faith, really. This is a job, this is a market which is actually really like, there's a lot of jobs for everyone on this call. I don't know, there's like 31 of you, or 31 of you can actually, 30 of you, I'll remove Akin from the list, but 30 of you would be able to actually get jobs in project management. So good luck, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. All right. So following up on that, I've got another industry expert, I'll call him. Is into business management, business analysis, and has been working in the industry for so many years as well. He has worked with different organizations, from oil and gas to consultancy to health. So I'm going to call on him now as well to share an insight to what it's like to be a business analyst, the opportunities, the challenges, everything that comes with the role. So without further ado, Dotun, over to you. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. As Akin mentioned, my name is Dotun, and I'm a business analyst, and that is what I've been doing for many years now. So what I'm going to do, my approach might be a bit different from what Dina did. I will just try, because I know that you've been kind of learning theoretical this thing. So my approach will be more of what you will encounter when you walk into a job, kind of. Because I could remember I was exactly at this level too. And part of what I was thinking when I was doing the training is, how is it going to be like when I walk into a job? Because the ice needs to be broken. That is when whatever you might have been taught, you will now need to put it, kind of display it. Now, we talk about business analysis. Let me quickly chip this in, because I know during the course of your training, that might have been emphasized. Business analysis, you will always work from user's perspective. What do I mean by business user? The purpose of engaging a business analyst person is just to improve a process. Let's just put it, either IT or a piece of software that need improvement, or they need a new one that will enhance the way they do their work. So it's just about improvement. And why they need you is they believe that the user of that process, or the user of the software you're going to use, they might not really understand the technical jargons the builder or the project person is going to be telling them. So you are at the bang in the middle in order to translate whatever the user wants to see to the developer or the project team that is going to produce or improve that process. So your job is very, very important, because the success of the improvement process will rely solely on you. If the project team got it wrong, then you might have not done your work well, because you are the one that will translate whatever they want to whatever is going to be produced. So that is just that. And one thing I want to tell you guys is, if you lack confidence, I will say this, and I'll be very, very blunt. Business analysis might not be your best bet. You must be exuding confidence. Just as the Dina mentioned, nobody knows your weaknesses. It's you that know your weakness, so you don't need to show it. When you enter an organization, let your shoulder, let it be high, and be very, very proactive, and you should be a quick learner. They call you into a meeting, you ask the right question, and then you make sure that you are able, because just as they used to say, Google is your friend. As you are doing your own research yourself, things you think you don't know, you are quickly making sure you get a clear, a kind of understanding of what they're talking about. Now, the next thing I want to do now is to take you through a journey. Today, you've been hired as a business analyst and you walk into a door. What is going to happen? There are two methodologies, as been mentioned, that is very, very familiar. There are other ones, but the two that is so in use everywhere you go is the agile and then the waterfall, the traditional one. That is the one that you use. Within the agile, that's when the Scrum Master that you guys ask of now, that is part of the agile process. And then they have the development team, where you have the business analyst, the tester, the developer, they are part of that team. But the waterfall method, everybody is there and they have different work stream that they want to use. Now I'll give you this instance so that it will flow along. Now today you are resuming on Monday 9 a.m. as a business analyst. What is expected of you? As soon as you walk into that door, somebody who is going to meet you. They'll say, oh yes, my name is so. It's either to be a project manager you are going to work with, or the business change manager. Now, the business change manager, why do we really need business change manager? It is not in all projects you see business change manager. Business change manager is just there in case you have maybe like 2 or 3, 4 projects that is going on, and you have a program manager that is sitting on top. The business change manager will be the one that will oversee all the business change process in all of these other projects that is happening at once. And then we have the business change lead. The lead is the one that will be responsible for a particular project, one project at a time. So he is the one that will coordinate the work of the other business analysts within that particular project. Now, what do you really need to do? Remember that to every process change you want to undertake, remember that human being naturally will resist change. We don't like change. But when in most organizations, when there's going to be process change like that, what they want to do is they want to make sure that this change you want to implement, it has a less impact, as a negative impact on the people that is going to use it. So that is where your own role comes into play now. We want to change a software A to software B. People are used to software A. How are we going to replace software A with software B such that it will not impact on the way people are working significantly, and it will not reduce adverse effect on the production? So that is why you are there. You want to see ahead of the team. You want to make sure that all these things are identified and mitigation put in place. Now, you walk into this, you met the project manager, call you into a meeting for a brief that, okay, what do I expect you to do? It's either project manager or business change manager, or let's say even business change lead. Call you into a meeting, and the first thing I will expect you to ask as a business analyst is to say, if I will appreciate if you can let me have the project initiation documents. That is the PID. The PID is just an extract of a business case. It must be signed off before project can begin. It will state what is expected, the objective of that project, what is expected in that project, what are the benefits that they are looking for that project, the scope, things that they need to work on, and things that they are not going to work, probably is going to have another phase. So this one will be inside this project we are doing now, which is in scope. Then there's what we call out of scope. It's not going to be inside this project as of now. So all these things, you need to go and take this document as a first person to go and go through. You need to understand the in scope and out of scope. And then you need to understand the benefits. And then you need to understand the objective of the project. When you know all these things now, then you can now, because even within the PID, you will see names of the stakeholders. It might not be complete one, but there are ones that are responsible person for that project. We call them project sponsor. They are the one that will have the primary benefit, reap the primary benefit of that project. Their name will be there. They are concerned. So when you are doing your stakeholder mapping, I think they must have taught you that one. When you are doing your stakeholder mapping, all these ones that are project sponsor, they are very, very critical to the project. So you need to manage them very well, because the success of that project depends on them. They are the one that will hold your hand and point the direction at which you need to follow to you. So when you study that document, the PID, when you study it and then you now resume your work, the first thing you need to do is you need to now study the current process. How are they working at the moment? How are they working? What is this? What is it like? That is when you now need to you need to go into site where you're working. You need to start asking questions. Oh, you introduce yourself to them. I am so. I resume today. My job is to make sure that this system we want to change, we make sure that all your interest, all the things that you want is replicated in the new one that is coming, so that your process, you need to sell the process in itself to the people you are meeting. It's very, very fundamental. And then you make sure that whatever they raise, because majority, just as I said, that people resist change. You might be getting some kind of response that are not really, really, really good. Oh, no. Oh, they've come again. No, because that is human nature. But it is your own job to make sure that To every concern they raise, you are able to counter and then give them assurance that we will not go live with this project until you really understand what you are doing, and what the way you are working now, we make sure that we put it in the next application that is coming. So when you meet them, they tell you the way they work. You put all these things that you can be jotting it down. Why I'm telling you this is, traditionally, when you are doing your training, they will tell you that you gather requirements. When you gather requirements, you do your process mapping and all those things. It is not in all cases. It starts from gathering requirements. In some projects, it is only in software development project or some project that they want to start from the scratch that you need to start gathering requirements. In some projects where they've already made their decision, the kind of software they're going to buy from the third party. So they just need to adapt that software to the use of the people that want to use it. So all what you just need to do when you get there is to pick it from, okay, because they might have made the decision that this is the software we are buying, this is the vendor we are using. That already been in place before you come in. All what you just need to do, how the process they are doing now is going to fit into what they've already bought. That is now your own headache. And if there is any gap between what they want to get, that is what you need to be concerned about and make sure that that is properly addressed. So now you come in now, you've talked to them, you've told them that you want to understand the way they work at the moment so that you'll be able to plan for the future for them, the future way of working. So when they give you all those kind of step-by-step, you draft it down, then you now come back home, then you now try to sketch, you call it process mapping, you map it out the way they work. The way they work, you take it back to them to show them, they look at it, whether it's correct the way you've drawn it. If it's not correct, you go back and correct it, you return it back to them until they now agree that, oh yes, this is exactly the way we work at the moment. And they will now give you, probably by email, to tell you that we are happy with what you've drawn. And that is what we call sign off. You need to get that sign off in place in case in future they want to query some certain things. They will tell you that you are the one that signed, we show you and you have signed it off yourself. So that will not be pushed back to the project team. Okay, now the next one is, when you now have done that, now you now need to go back to the vendor. Now you've told us they've already bought this system. Can you show us how to play out? You meet the vendor, there's what we call demo. They will demonstrate what they have for you. You will see it, you ask vendor questions with the knowledge of the assist, the current way of working you've already gotten up. Now you are not a novice again, you've understood the way they work at the moment. So with that question, now with that one, now you start asking questions from the vendor that, now that this one is there now, how is it going to play out? How is it going to play out? And there's what we call optimal workflow. The optimal workflow is the way the system will work that the vendor has already mapped out themselves. That if you want to realize the full benefit of this software, this is how it's supposed to play out. We call it optimal workflow. This is the map you will bring down, and then you go into your computer and map it out. When you map it out, they give you access to the UAT environment to test and feel how that process will play out. Then you now bring in the user, either together with the subject matter expert they've already designated to you. They look at it, then they will now be looking at it. Okay, then they will be asking questions. Oh, if this thing should go this way, we don't normally do it this way. No, this is going to create problem for us. All these things, just as the last speaker mentioned, as you start the project, you open what we call RAID log. That is a document that the project manager needs to put in place. Anything they are raising there, you need to put it down as an issue. Oh, this is issue. This is this. And then when you now document all these things, there is what we call the operational impact assessment. You are comparing the current process to the future way of working. And then you want to study, there's what we call gap analysis. When you look at it, the variance, when they used to work this way, they used to use paper, but now they want to be doing this process inside computer. That means we need to make sure that there is no gap. They need to understand the system very well. That gap you need to pin out. You need to pin it out and listen. So inside that document, all these things supposed to be there. You need to examine process by process, the way they work now and the way they'll be working in future. So whatever you see as a kind of impact, you bring it out, and then with the team that will be using the system, you need to meet regularly and discuss the impact. And then from the impact, you can now do what you can now put a mitigation in place to address that problem. So when you now do that, with what you've gathered, the other work stream that I've not mentioned, we have configuration, we have cutover, we have testing team, we have a training team. All these people, they will be meeting also with the project manager. Project manager is like a coordinating force within the whole team. We'll be meeting with every work stream to make sure that they meet the deadline for the project. And there's what we call project plan. The project plan has the date. Each time you meet a project manager, he will assign a deliverable to you, and he will tell you the time both of you are meeting again, whether you want to check the progress. If you meet the deadline, he will sign it off. If it's not, he can review the date again. So there's that broad spreadsheet project plan that's supposed to be in play. Now, like where I am working at the moment, which is the healthcare sector, there's work a clinical safety. When you are doing that kind of a project, you are changing the software in a health environment. It is not only for it to fit for purpose, but it also must be very, very not inimical to patient safety. So as you are doing that, you are meeting with the clinical safety officer of the hospital, of the health facility, to come and look at the issues that have been raised. There is a document called hazard log that you put there. They need to stratify that risk and see whether it's inimical to patient safety or it can lead to death. There's a way they rate it that they will now say, okay, all these documents, they need to close it before they could finally give go ahead for them to have we call it go or no go decision meeting, where they will now check. There's what we call a go live criteria that needs to be assigned, make sure that they check before they can now give go ahead to go live. So when they go live, you as a business analyst, even before you go live, business analysts need to sit with testing team to help them. You are the one that will guide them to where they're supposed to test, because you know the critical functionality of the application that is coming. You are going to guide the tester where they're supposed to test, help them to when they are writing their test script and everything, where they need to test rigorously and all those things. You need to guide them into it. And the same thing with training too. You need to help the training to develop their modules. You need to help training to develop their modules and make sure that the training is very, very comprehensive. If you know area that you know they might struggle, the users, you need to tell the training team that they need to support with the QRG, that is quick reference guide. Where's the pocket site they need to be checking when they go live. So, and at go live also, you are there to make sure that you are logging incidences, things that you are not, that were not really planned for, that happened. That needs to be put down. And if it's something that they can quickly fix, they can fix it. And if not, and it's not within scope, they can now do what we call RFC, which is request for change, which when they are now this thing, and another version is coming, they can now put that thing into it, and then they will be able to. So that is just the flow of you as a business analyst. But the most important thing, as I said, is you must be very, 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 very bold. You shouldn't be scared of anything whatsoever, and you should be a good talker. You should be, don't say, oh, I'm a very shy person. If you're a shy person, I'm very sorry, this profession might not be the best for you. You should be ready to talk. Just talk. Just as somebody used to say, even if you are saying something that you think is not right, just use boldness to say it. Because sometimes they will need to go back and look at what you have said. Oh, this guy said this, but don't just keep quiet and say, I don't know. Please don't do that. So that is just the way the business analysts play out. So if you have any question, I'm ready to.
Yeah, thank you. Before any question, when I was picking the speaker for tonight, I tried to pick people who are working in the industry, but not currently using the approach or what you've been taught at the training. As you can see, for the project management, you are using Waterfall with your project, with the approach of learning as well. And this is just to show you to see the other side of the coin, to show you that either you've been trained as a project manager using the Waterfall approach or using the Scrum approach. You never know which job you are going to land tomorrow. It might be project management, which is related to Waterfall. It might be project management, which is related to Agile, right? But how do you survive? Do you say because I only know Waterfall, I won't take up any project with Agile? Or as a business analyst, will you say, oh, because I've been taught in an agile way whereby you work with Scrum Master, development team and all of that, I'm new to waterfall way of working, I won't take up the role. It's not like that. So that is why I bring people who can talk in another perspective that you are not used to. So that when you are applying for a job, you don't restrict yourself to just, oh, I'm looking for IT project management, or I'm looking for IT business analyst, right? You should be able to cope in any situation, any environment that you find yourself. All right, so any questions for Dotun?
Yeah, Yemi, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dotun, for such a beautiful presentation. It's so refreshing to hear the extent of the projects you're working on and the impact it's having on, how your skills are in tune with it as well. You did mention some artifacts that you bring out as a business analyst. I don't know, can you please mention them again? Because I was trying to take notes of.
Okay. The very first thing when you get, because I will try and break it down for you. I mentioned project initiation document. That is the one that the project manager will give you to go and study, so that you will know the objective of the project, and then you know what in scope and what is out of scope. That is not really a deliverable. It's rather just something that will kind of keep you in the loop. And then from that document also, you will see the list of the stakeholders, just a few of them. Then as you start working, you will start introducing to the other ones. Then after that, I mentioned you drawing the process map for the current process, which we normally refer to as ASIS process map. ASIS process map is just to capture the current way of working, so that by the time the new system is going to come into play, you'll be able to make sure that every aspect of the way they are working is well taken care of in the new system. So process map is part of it, both as is and to be. And then there is what we call the operational impact assessment log. The operational impact assessment, apart from the RAID log, which the project manager oversee, the operational impact assessment is a document that will help you to check the variance between the way they are working at the moment and the way they'll be working in the future. Is there going to be a gap? If you tell me that they've been using paper now, later they'll start using system, that means there'll be a gap, and maybe before they just need one computer, and the paper they want to use, everybody use one computer. If you say they start using computer now, that means those people that are using computer and paper now will start using computer. The gap there is they need to get more computers. That is a big impact. That means the system they have in the area now is not going to be enough for everybody, for the staff. So that is an impact. So part of the mitigation you are going to discuss now with the team is, how are we going to do it now? Because people are not going to be using paper again. They will start using computer. We need to get more computers. Then that is part of the thing that is going to that document. Then every process that they do, maybe we scan the item here. Then if you scan the item here, then that means one person will need one computer. So all these things is going to go into operational impact assessment, which of course is going to give rise to what we call gap analysis. Gap is just what's different from the way they're working and the way they'll be working in the future. That is the gap. You must have been hearing gap analysis a lot. The document you use to get gap analysis out is what we call operational impact assessment log. And then I mentioned about hazard log. The hazard log in itself is just a document, especially when the factor of safety is very, 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 very important, where they cannot joke with the safety of what you are bringing out. For example, now maybe in the banking industry, you want to develop, you are developing a kind of a software that will be helping people, maybe online payment and all those things. The safety of that one must be very, very robust, such that it should not kind of, apart from the fact that the testing team is going to test rigorously, you as a business analyst, you want to make sure that the system is fit for purpose and it's not going to create a kind of a problem. So all this one, and then when you look at the health sector, which of course, you know what health entails, any mistake can lead to death. So in that kind of case, there should be a robust hazard log in place. And in most organizations, they have their clinical safety team headed by a clinical safety officer. They will be meeting you periodically to check that log. You will have access to that log and be checking anything that is put into it. It will risk stratify. He's the one that will say, oh, this one is not, you can't rate it, you can't raise it 2. Let it be 4. It will be the one that will stratify the risk and bring it down. So every risk that is there will make sure that he has developed something that will be able to caution that risk or remove this risk completely. So before they can now say, okay, you know what, we can now go live with that software, we will start using it, because they need to balance the fitness for purpose and not inimical to patient safety. So those are the documents, the PID, the OIA, the what they call it, the process map. All these are documents also. There are other documents also you might need. The request for change document. It depends on where you are at a particular project, and then the standard operating procedure document. Because when you finish drawing this system, you still want to help them to draw how they are going to use it to maximize the benefit of that system. So that is when you need standard operating procedure document. So that one, they need to write how they will be using the document to maximize it. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Although I'm going to ask if there's more questions, but I have a question as well. So we've been trained on agile way of working, delivery, working with development team, Scrum team, all of that. Aside that, the job market. So the aim is, when we finish this process, going through the training, the theoretical training, and working on a project, just to get used to what is expected if peradventure we get a job out there, or how to defend ourselves at interview. But what is the job market like out there? And do we stand any chance in the current situation?
I won't lie to you, it has never been good in the job market for business analysts as it is now. I would say the market is seriously booming. Wherever you find yourself, if you're not going to get fixed term contract, if you're not going to get a permanent job, you will get contracting job. Business analyst is just a job that is just, I won't lie to you, it's just everywhere. And when you understand, I'm not going to sit here and be saying that, oh, forget about theory or don't lay emphasis on theory, because they will interview you in theory before they can expose you or ask you about to show your skill in practical. So things that you need to know in theory, I will advise you that try and know it, because all these questions, that's what they will ask you. Oh, how do you manage stakeholder? If you have a stakeholder that is very, very stubborn or very, very not supporting this thing, how are you going to manage the person? All these kind of questions they're going to ask you, and you have to find a way of answering. So because majority of, I can say 90% of the business analysis question you will get during interview will be centered around stakeholder. And why is this so? And why is this so? The reason why it is so is because if you as a business analyst cannot handle the stakeholder, then you won't be able to elicit the requirement, what they want, how they're gonna, if you cannot work with the person that will use the system, then there's no way for them to develop the system in the first place. So that is why they keep hammering about whether you have experience in managing stakeholders. And that is where confidence comes into play. I have worked with one of the best surgeons in Europe. In fact, the nurses in that hospital, they were even scared to even talk to that consultant. He's a very, very renowned surgeon that normally do this heart transplant and all those things. Even sit with, because they believe that they are bank of knowledge. They are so intelligent. But one thing I want you to know is, for them to take you in, those doctors, they don't know anything. Those people you are meeting, it's not as if they are experts in the trade. It is when you now get there, you start showing them and trading the benefits of what you have brought to them. That's when they will respect you. So I've talked to them. I don't really, they will do their job. I do my own job. But the most important thing is, whatever you want to say, be confident and be bold enough to say it, and they will respect you for it. But as soon as they know that you really don't know what you are doing, and I'm telling you, it is not them only that will complain. Even your team will see your your incompetence, and that might cost you your job.
Thank you for that. I've got another question before I throw it open again. So does it really matter which methodology you've been trained in, though, as in, does that limit your chance of getting a role as a business analyst? Take, for example, you've been trained on waterfall. Is it only waterfall you can apply for, or you've been trained on agile way? Is it only agile way you can apply for?
No.
Just for more light.
Okay, that's a very good question. The methodology is just methodology, but the process in itself is the same. There's what we call BABOK. The BABOK is a business analyst book of knowledge. When you look at that document, everything, all the terminologies, all the processes are compiled. It's like a Bible of the business analyst. Everything is inside that book. It's a very, very large, voluminous book like that. They call it BABOK. The same thing followed that suit. The only thing that is different between waterfall and agile is just the way the team will work with each other. It's just the way the team will work with each other. But you as a business analyst, you will still follow that same process to deliver your deliverables.
Thank you. Any other question from anyone?
Hello.
I have a question.
Okay.
So does that mean that business analysts can work in a waterfall environment as well?
Yes. Waterfall, we call it traditional. What do we really mean? Because I believe they must have told you. The waterfall or traditional method is just a kind of a system that they leave testing till the very last, when they are about to go live with the project. They leave the testing till that time. And unlike Agile, that they make it in iterative form, that to every sprint that you deliver, it must be something very, very functional, something that is shippable to for product. The sponsor of the project will be able to review and say yes. For example, now you want to design an interface of a system, you pick login to work on. By the time you deliver that sprint, at that particular you deliver that and finish that sprint, you want to make sure that by the time you go into that system, you click on that listing, you should be able to log in. But unlike traditional method, they will leave the whole process to the very last minute. They will do registration, they will do login, they will do maybe checkout, whatever the system is meant for. They will leave it to the last minute. Then they will do the testing, user acceptance testing. Then after user acceptance testing, then they will now say, okay, we can go live with it. So it is not necessarily mean that, oh, because I am trained in Agile, then waterfall, I'm not good in it. We can do all this talking from now till tomorrow, but I can assure you that by the time you go into the work environment, you will discover that all these things, they are not really difficult. It is the experience that will teach you. Things they've taught you, now say, oh, okay, this is how it relates. Oh, now I can understand. So that is just it. When you are BA, maybe you have 1 or 2 BA within the development team in Agile, they will be there. You'll be doing the same, make the same deliverables. You still review this requirement and all those things. The same thing you will do in Waterfall is the same thing you will do in Agile, but the way you work as a team is different. So that is why the two is different. And then the issue of you leaving things for testing. As soon as you finish your job, you pass it to testing, and developer work on it, then pass it to testing. Testing will look at it. If it's okay, then they pass it. If it's not, they return it back. That is the Agile. But ordinarily Waterfall, it's very, very easy. Just do your job. They will tell you, if you meet with your project manager, I may say you meet every Monday, he will tell you what you need to bring the next time you're going to meet. He might say, okay, you know what? In 2 weeks' time, I want to see the process map of the current process. I want to see the current process map. Can you get it done? Okay, let's see what will happen. That's when you start meeting them. You start jotting. You have a lot of meetings. You do workshop. You do interview. Especially with now that everybody's using Team now, you can organize meeting remotely. You get whatever you need to get. If there's a kind of an interface the system is going to interface with another system. You need to make sure that how are they using that system? How is it going to interface with this one that we want to change? All this, you need to bring it out, and then the reporting again, if there is need for reporting, what are they reporting on? How are they going to be reporting the new system? All this you need to extract out. But by the time you start, you will discover that it is not as difficult as it looks. But the most important thing, as I say, is you must be bold and be ready to talk.
Thank you again.
Hello, Mr. Dotson.
Hello.
Yeah. Please, what percentage of your work is remote?
That's a very good question. For now, I would say 98, 99. But the only thing about a business analyst is, and you should be careful when you have interview, don't be too centered on remote working, because a typical business analyst is driven by the deliverables he needs to deliver. And you cannot stay in front of a computer and get all this done sometimes. You need to really sometimes visit the site, meet people one-on-one. You understand? So it is not all the time that it's a, but by the time you are confident, you really know what you are doing, you can know different strategy of eliciting requirement from stakeholders. But I will say, anytime you have interview, if they say, oh, this, you tell them that, look, to be honest, in as much as I would like to work remotely, but I will want that to be driven by my deliverables that I need to deliver. Because you might be dealing with a stakeholder that is very difficult to track down. Some of them you need to go and wait early in the morning as soon as they enter their office before they start seeing clients. So all these people now, you don't want to stay on the computer and be waiting for when they will accept your meeting invite. So that is why you need to be very flexible when they talk about, oh, how can you do this thing? So it's actually they throw it to you, tell them that you are very flexible. In fact, even if they say it's 3 days on site, 2 days at home, tell them that it might even be more than that. Because why? When you need to get things done or elicit or get something done or arrange a meeting, you can even stay up to 5 days doing your own work. But at the end of the day, when you start doing your work, nobody's going to chase you, because you will be accountable to the project manager. And as soon as you are delivering that, nobody's going to be behind you anyway.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask this question before I throw it open again. This is a concern for everyone. I've been in the situation as well. We undertake this course, right, with the hope, like a crash course, right? And I do tell my people that our input will be equal to our output at the end of the day. It's the time we commit to it that we're going to benefit from when we start applying for jobs. But the fear is still there, that I only undertook this course, be on this process for 3 months or 4 months, right? How can I compete with those who has been doing it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the industry? Do I stand a chance? Can I even get in?
Let me say this. When I started, I started thinking that I will start slow, but I started very hard. My very first job, I entered as a business analyst, but I ended up taking the role of a business change lead. What's the difference between business analyst and business change lead? As a business change lead, you are the one that will write the business change strategy. What do you mean by business change strategy? For every project, you are going to write how that is going to be implemented with the users. So you just need to itemize, this is the step that we're going to use so that the impact of change will not be much. So you as a business change lead, you are the one that will write that. And then there is they might even ask you for the communication strategy. How are you going to communicate that change to the person that will use it? So all these things, they are there. But the most important thing is, just as the first speaker says, nobody knows your weakness. You are going there, even as you knock the door, you enter, even the person that have knowledge of experience in this job will not know that you are just coming in, except maybe you open your mouth and start telling them that, oh, this is my first job and all that, which of course I believe you're not going to do that. What will stand you out is your, what we call domain knowledge. If you know the job you are taking is going to be an insurance, within insurance listing, before you walk into that door, try and do a bit of study. What insurance entails, the terminology they use, the processes, how it works, how it flows, so that by the time you sit in the meeting and they're having their meeting, you have one or two things to mention or to ask about. They'll say, "Ah, no, it seems this person knows what he's talking about." So it's very, very important. You need to be very, very proactive. Proactiveness is very, very important. You don't wait till when meeting comes and then they throw everything on you. As soon as we go into a meeting, you know what the meeting is all about. You too, you prepare your own question. And then you ask, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, that person. Oh, yeah, in fact, we've not even thought about that." It's very, very important. So as soon as you go into a meeting, you know what the meeting, or you go into an interview, or you resume in a job, try and do a bit of a research and do a kind of a spread. But to be honest, what you are going to meet is the same thing as what you've been taught. 100%, that I can guarantee you. But the only thing you are going to get when you start a job is the confidence and the skill, and probably maybe domain knowledge.
Thank you.
Hello.
I have a question though.
Okay.
I know every job has its challenges.
Okay.
So I'd like to ask, as a BA, what challenges should one be expecting?
That's a very, very good one. I will still zero it down to the stakeholders, because whatever you want to do, whatever you want to bring, whatever you want to achieve is woven around the stakeholders. You might see somebody that is very, very critical. Let me give you an instance. You walk into an hospital and they told you that they want to change a system they've been using maybe like 20, 15 years. And they've told the staff that this system you've been using for 20 years, some of them, they were even trained on that system. They've never seen any other system. That's what they've been using. So you don't expect when you walk into that door that you want to tell them that, oh, it's changing, they should clap for you. Because we human beings, we have what we call fear of unknown. Some of them will start panicking that, oh, they might sack me. Oh, I might not be good the way I used to do. In fact, you see a lot of things that I'll be playing out. I remember a particular project I did. When they started the project, they didn't really see the need for business change person to come into play. I'll be using business change and I'll be using business analyst. I will try and clarify a bit. It's a bit interwoven. Business change, your job is not limited to you drawing process map and all those things. You still need to manage the change at the front end and make sure that the user, they are confident, they are happy with what is coming. So that is where the strategy comes into play. But as a business analyst, you just limit yourself to the deliverable, the artifacts, and all those things that I've mentioned. It's just for you to get it in place. So they didn't think about bringing a business change person to come into the. So the project had been stalled several times. They were not able to meet the deadline. And as I finished a particular project, they say, "Oh, Dr. you are the one that will go into this project again. Please get ready." And okay, that's fine. When I spoke with the user, in fact, they didn't even hide it in the forum that we have the top shots in the organization. They started complaining. "Oh, we don't even know what they are doing. We are going to have problems." They started giving them a very, very extreme scenario. In fact, to the extent that the sponsor, they were afraid. So I now told them that, "Okay, come, I will arrange another meeting again to meet with them." And when I met with them, because you need to identify people that are key opinion leader. The key opinion leader is, they are the one, they have wealth of knowledge in that particular area. They are very, very strong, and when they talk, people listen to them. So those people, you identify them and you sell the idea to them. You sell the benefit, because you too, as a business analyst, when you are studying the PID, you need to extract the benefit. What is in it? Because that's the driver of change. To every change we see, what is driving, what is common there is, what is in it for me? What is my own, what am I going to get? So you need to let them know the benefit. Oh, when you normally use this system, you know that you need to go to block C to go and get a document before you can now submit it to block A. You know that when we bring this document, you don't need to go up and down, everything come straight into the system. And they say, oh, really? And I can tell you, I'm just giving you for this because you need to build relationship again. You must be a people's person and be a kind of you must have a conflict management skill also. You tell them, say, look, listen, I'm just telling you this. This system will not go live until you know how to use it. I'll make sure, you just give them that confidence, and you say that they would like you, they will be this thing. There was a particular woman that vowed that it will not happen, and it's very, very outspoken. If they need to call the woman to a meeting, if they don't see me, the woman will not come. To the extent, and I joined them, it was barely 1 month or 2 months. But the way I handled the woman so liked me that as soon as they call the woman ignored their email. As soon as I send email to the woman will say, okay, doctor, what do you want? So they normally use me to get in touch with them because why? I always make sure that they are part of the decisions. And I used to tell them the benefits that will be there for them when they, so those are the kind of a thing that you need to work on, because without it, business analysis could be very, very challenging if you don't know how to manage your stakeholders and if they don't have confidence in you. Because if you send meeting invite to them, they might not, they can ignore it. And if they ignore it, you will not be able to deliver to the project manager, and project manager will complain about you, and that will be a very big problem. Because if other team lead, if other work stream are waiting for you to deliver your own side, if you are not, then they will say you are not competent, and they might be. So you must be able to manage relationship. It's very, very important. So I think that is just the challenge. If you are good with the stakeholder, every other thing I can assure you, and you can talk, forget it. The rest is very easy.
Thank you. I'll take 2 more questions. One is from the chat, and one if anybody wants to ask any other question. The one from the chat says, can you please enlighten me about who the subject matter experts are? I understand they are stakeholders, but who exactly are they and what do they do?
Okay, that's a very, very good question. Subject matter expert is just like the name implies, subject matter expert. Let's say, let me use an aviation industry for an example now. Aviation industry, maybe they want to renovate the checking in process at the airport. There must be a check-in manager or somebody that has worked in that place that know inside out of the process. That when you call the person like this, he will tell you right from the beginning to the end, the kind of problem they might encounter. That kind of a person is what we call subject matter expert. And in most cases, it's the project sponsor that identify that kind of a person. When you go to a clinic or hospital, they will tell you that, oh, at the emergency department, go and meet a nurse, so. He's been there for over 50-something years. In fact, he started the training here for over this thing. So anything you want to know concerning the way we work, go and talk to the person. Those kind of person, they nominate them into the project. So that when you are asking questions within the project team, he will be the one that will be guiding you. You'll say, no, don't let us do it like that. We have problem when we did it so time. So those kind of person as well, those are the people we refer to as the subject matter expert, the key person concerning process in the area. And they always bring them into a project team for them to help within the team.
Thank you. So the final question from anyone else, if not, I'll go to Adeyemi. Any other question from anyone else? All right, Adeyemi asks the final question for you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I just want to find out, so what kind of system do you use for your documentation? Because I do know that Visio is quite popular for most business analysts, but in your case, what system do you use?
To be honest, just as you said, if you are drawing a process map, of course you use Visio to draw it. So it's pretty much that's if Visio is a very, very common thing that you use, it's very good, and that's the one I use to draw process map anyway. But every other thing you want to do, they are more like a template. You don't need to worry yourself. There are a lot of templates online that you can download. If they say go and write business case, there's a template for it. Feasibility study, there's a template for it. Operational impact, there's a template for it. Hazard log, rate, everything. It's just for you to get conversant with what you're doing and you are confident. So if in a meeting, they tell you, you are going to do this for us, don't tell them, how am I going to do this? Just say, okay, that's fine. Then you go and do your research. After you might have done your research and you didn't really get clarity, you can drop the person email that, oh, we were talking about this, I've done a bit of this thing. Can you give me 5 minutes? I want to run something by you. The person, and then you clarify. There's nothing wrong in that. But the most important thing is when anything they ask you, just do a bit of research, do this thing. Then there was a time they said I should do, I've never heard about it. They said benefit realization plan. I should put it in place. I did my research. I put everything together. I sent it to them. And then in most organizations too, when you roll out a system, they want to do the recovery plan in case that system fails. How are they going to recover and move on? So you need to do business continuity plan also. This document is there. If they don't have, some organizations have it, they have a folder for it. But if they don't have, you can check on online. A lot of things are there. You modify it to suit the organization you are using, and that's it. So it's not rocket science, to be honest.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We really, really do appreciate the insight, the clarity and all of that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you very much, guys. I wish you best of luck.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wish you very best of luck. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope our path will cross again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So we have one more to go. Remember, sometimes you might, when we work, probably most times in Agile, you don't work alone. You work with other people in your team as well, with BAs, with developers, with testers and all of that. So our last guest, she's into software automation engineer, and she has worked with different organizations as well, implementing software, testing for them and all of that. So let me call on Oyin to, talk to us in the house what it takes to be a software tester or software automation tester. Do we stand a chance after the training and, the path, the opportunities, everything? So Oyin, please, over to you. Thank you. You're on mute. If you don't know, you're on. Thank you.
Thanks, Aki, for that. And as Aki said, my name is Onyade Phillips. I'm a quality assurance engineer, and that actually entails being an automation tester as well as a manual tester. My experiences, I've been working in housing, healthcare, and e-commerce. And as you've heard, the project manager, as well as the business analyst also state, we tend to work hand in hand, and we use Agile and Waterfall. So how it works in a proper life scenario is you have either the project manager or the Scrum Master. Then you have the hierarchy of the business analyst. As a tester, you'll probably be working a lot more with a business analyst. The Scrum Master will be there, like the lady explained earlier. She will just be managing or facilitating the team. And when we mean the team, we're talking about the developers. The testers are also classed as developers. So in the Agile methodology, or even now, I think even Waterfall, they call everybody developers. So that will be developer who is developing the website or whatever application the company is using. And then you also have the testers, who we then also call as developers. So basically, the basic that you need initially is the manual testing. A lot of the time you hear about regression, you hear about integration, you hear about data testing, all of those. You need the basic before you can even go into automation. Automation basically is when you start using C# or you're using Java to write your coding. And there's a lot of job prospects right now. I think in IT, basically at the moment, I think maybe after COVID, not sure, but there's just a lot of jobs out there. Once you do your work, you'll be able to get a lot of jobs. And with testing, compared to what the Scrum Master as well as the business analyst has said, when you get into testing, there's a lot of different sort of applications. The good thing with testing is the business analyst has written the business requirements that you need to use to test. And he did give an example of a login. So they will have said, we want this login to be successful. Can you test if this login is unsuccessful? So more or less, they've given you like exposure or expo as we call it in Nigeria. Like they've already told you, this is what we want you to try and do. All you just then need to do is write your test cases, which is why I really stated about manual. Some companies, every company is also different. Some companies, they've written the manual, they've written the test cases for you. You just need to then test it. Some companies, you have to actually write it yourself and then test it. So depending on whichever company you go into, there's always going to be your business requirements, which is what the business analyst would have written. And then all you need to do is test those functionalities that, is it working as expected? So you have your expected results, which is what they expect it to be. And then once you've tested it, you then have what we call the actual result, which is, did this work as it should? If it did, then obviously that has passed. If it doesn't, then it's failed. Then we'll talk about raising the bugs. All those things they'll clarify with you once you start your training. You raise your bug, how to raise your bug, who to tag, and all of that, and then you retest it. So that's why we said with testing, you have to understand what a functional testing is, what your integration testing is. We have the data testing as well. We have quite a lot of testing, but those are based on the manual. And as the business analyst has said as well, all these questions you'll be asked in interviews, when you come into the live scenario, you tend to use them, but you don't really focus on them like that because they're something you're using like sort of every day, but you just need to understand how it works in sync with what you're trying to do. So I'm going to pause at the moment. If anybody has got any questions right now.
I can open the floor with questions because I'm trying to, go into the arts of my student and, put myself in their shoes and see the kind of question they might ask. I'm actually a non-technical. I came from a no technical background at all. I entered this process, to become not just a manual tester, but to become an automation tester in the sense that at the end of the day, you'll be writing script in programming language like C#, Java. Meanwhile, I'm actually coming from a nursing background, or I'm coming from a care worker background, or I'm coming from a security background with no technical knowledge. Can I actually do it? Can I actually get a job as a software automation engineer? Not even a manual tester, right? Manual tester, everybody can do it. Even I can teach a baby in the womb to become a manual tester. But as automation tester, which is technical, which involves you writing something in a programming language which you've never seen nor heard of before, do we actually stand a chance? Can they do it?
The answer to that question is yes. Like Akin has rightly stated, a lot of us, even myself included, that I'm now doing both, didn't have any technical knowledge of any of the programming language when I started. And so if you actually do your diligence, when you've been taught, as they're going to teach you now, you also need to practice. You also need to have a better understanding. You also need to know what the basics of it should be. I think right now, because the companies, as in
IT or testing as a whole now is becoming a bit saturated, especially with the automation. Though manual has been there for a while, automation is becoming saturated now. So if you can know your basic, like if they ask you what method is, you should be able to explain what a method is or how you use it in your framework. So those sort of things, yes. To learn the coding language is, once you understand the basic of it, is repetitive. It's the same thing that you copy and paste into the next line. Is very repetitive. You just need to understand what you're doing when you're writing. When we talk about code, it's not like a Greek sort of language. It's just basically like if you're writing 1, 2, 3, you just really need to know where you're putting your quotes and what you're writing and how to write it. So yes, to that question, yes, no, everybody can learn it.
Thanks. There's a question on the chat says, when does automation comes in Agile?
Okay, so with automation, like I clearly stated earlier, once the system you're using, or application, we mean basically if you're testing the website, for instance, once it is stable and it is something that has to be used repetitively, that's when it goes into automation. They cannot start a brand new application and you want to push it into automation. It would not be possible because the system is not even stable for you to be able to do that. I think the reason why a lot of companies tend to use automation right now is so that a lot of workforce, if you do something manually, and a lot of companies now, they tend to update, their applications from time to time, instead of them having to get someone that is going to repeat something that they've done before. Because when they're going to test again, they have to make sure that the developer that has worked on it hasn't broken something else that was working before. So even though they've done it before, they still need someone to retest all those functionalities that were working before. So what they try and do now is, once they've automated those functions, it's easy for them to run it and know what is broken, so that then they can then fix that, instead of getting a lot of manual hands that will have to start retesting all of that. And automation is really fast as well. In a couple of minutes, you've done it. And now they've even integrated something called continuous integration. So behind the scene, they've run it. They know where it's failed. And then they know what we need you to retest to know what the issue is. If it's a different code, then you can just get the code in and then run it to pass. So that's when automation actually comes into play.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. Kindly talk about the job prospects, especially with remote opportunities, and your job experience as well.
There's a lot of remote opportunities. I think during the COVID period, I think a lot of people went straight into remote. Obviously, nobody was allowed out, so a lot of companies went into remote. Right now, there's still remote options. They tend to try to do, at least with quite a few calls of recent that I've had, they try to do hybrid working. And when we talk about hybrid working, some companies will say, we want you in once or twice a week. Some companies will be like, can you just come in once a month? Some companies will like once in 3 months. So it does depend on the company itself. And there are some companies that, is fully remote. Like for me, instance, the company I'm working with, when I started, it was obviously during COVID, but the company I'm working with, they're based in Bristol and I'm based in Leeds. So obviously, initially I thought, okay, I'll be able to relocate to Bristol. But when I checked the cost prices, the house prices in Bristol compared to Leeds, I just didn't want to. So obviously I had a word with my manager, and luckily for me as well, the difference is my company is internationally based. So a lot of the people I work with, they're based in India or they're based in America. So it's not like if we're all going to be in central place. So I'm still going to be doing the same thing I'm doing from home at work. So it really didn't make any sense technically. So they never said we're not coming back to work. They just gave an option of, if you can come back, If you want to come in. If it's not like they're forcing you to. So you get a lot of companies whereby, yes, you have fully remote. Some it will be once a month, twice a month, but they're out there if you wanted the jobs, yeah.
And the other part of the question is, can you tell us about your job experience as well?
Oh, yeah. Luckily with me, when I got my job, so the first job I got, I was the only tester in that company. And to be honest with you, I just finished my training and I was going to be the only tester in that company. Like both the two speakers spoke, you need to be confident. You don't need to be cocky. They don't really like people that are cocky. They like people that are confident in what they do, are friendly, and you're not coming to have any sort of stripes with them. If you can build a relationship, both speakers have said it goes a long way. You try and put your points across, but at the same time, you're trying to do it really nicely. And the way you tend to do that, or how I've tended to build such relationship initially before the COVID broke down anyway, when we used to go to work, because as testers, if you're not very careful, which is another sort of question they tend to ask you, how do you manage developers? Some companies, the developers can be really, I think they're the ones that make the testers' job really hard, because from my experience, I don't think the testing job is really hard. They've given you, it's requirements tests, that's all you're testing. But it's when you're testing it, if it's breaking or if, the developers, I don't know, I think they think is a fault to their job, that they're not doing their job properly. But they tend to get a bit sort of iffy with you. But easiest thing to do is show them the application. It's easy to jump on the call. See this. Oh, or do you think I haven't done it right? I tend to use that a lot so that it doesn't keep them, edgy. I'm like, can you come and look at this thing? Maybe there's something I spotted it, but it might be that I'm not doing it correctly. Let's just check it together. I know that, there's a fault to it, but so that it's not like if you come with, oh, there's a bug to this thing, you need to fix it. They're all like, no, but when you come with, I'm not really sure, I think there's something, but if we have a look at it together, maybe I haven't spotted what, you've done. And then when it comes in, you test it, and you're like, okay, this thing is a bug, just raise it. You already knew. So the next day, if you're coming back to him, he's happy to talk to you. And then you've made the decision sort of like together, that sort of thing. So yeah, testing is interesting. I think to both the speakers I just spoke now, I would really suggest that testing is like the in thing to go into if you really, really wanted to.
Thank you. There's another question on the chat. Can one apply for an automation job with a different programming language that you are not experienced in?
Oh, I wouldn't suggest that. I think it's best to go with a programming language that you have basic knowledge of. A lot of the time, what a lot of companies tend to do now is, some companies don't, but a lot of the companies that I have been with, even currently with my current job, when I was applying for the job, it was meant to be as an automation tester. By the time I got into, I've hardly done any automation at all, because, they have a lot more workload on their desktop applications. I'm not even doing a lot of web applications as well. Whereas where I was coming from, I was strictly on web. When you're doing web, you tend to do a lot of automation testing as well. But if you're doing desktop application, they don't really need automation on desktop. Automation can't really work with Selenium because you need to pick up a Chrome to run your automation, which is your web application. Desktop is just on your desktop. They have some legacy applications that they have to work on. So I'm strictly on manual right now. So they would advertise automation. They will advertise, we want automation. But then that's why it's good for you to have basic idea. So they will talk of, have you set up your framework from scratch? Can you work on an existing framework? All those answers should be yes, because when you pick up any framework, if you have the basic idea, you realize that I just need to copy and paste what this person has written before, and I just need to change some titles and it will work. but once you know the basics, you'll be fine. And if you don't even know the basics, you've got a community here whereby, all of your colleagues, you still interact. And obviously you've got your main tutor as well. He's been working in the field as a tester for donkeys as well. So he will be able to put you through and point you in the right direction. So I don't think there's any reason to be fearful with regards to getting into testing.
Oh, sorry. I quickly, yeah. Thanks for that. I just want to say one or two things about that. As many of you know, I don't keep this as a secret because I think the best way to share experience is from your own personal experience. You all know that I came from non-technical to technical. I was trained on C# as well. And, at the beginning as well, I thought, okay, probably I'll only go for any C# related roles because as at that time, I don't know any difference between C# and other programming language. So I just want to stick to that thing that I know. So there was this particular job that I got shortlisted for. I've been working already. I was working on a C# Pro already, but I just threw my CV out and they shortlisted me for that role. And that was a Java role. I said to myself, it's a waste of time, me even going for this particular role because I don't know anything about Java. I'm not Java trained and all of that. But one thought said, okay, just go. You don't have anything to lose, right? And I went for the interview. And the interview, they asked me, have you used Java before? I said no, because I always tell my people, my students, anything you cannot defend, don't let it go on your CV. So I didn't put Java on my CV, so I could say no to that question. It's not a bad thing to say no to a question at the interview, as long as you can back it up that you are willing to learn and all of that. So I said, no, I haven't used Java, but I'm always willing to learn and all of that. But to the people interviewing me, they know if this guy can actually use C#, then Java shouldn't be a problem. As at that time, I don't know. So I just did the interview. And 2 weeks after, I was given the role. I was called, offered the role. So I was thinking to myself, how come? I didn't know Java. This role involves me using Java until I started the role. And I was using Java before I now know that. So Java and C#, they are similar. Even Java is much simpler, easier than C#. But because I haven't used it before, and because I was taught to that my small sense that it's only C#, I didn't know until I started using it. So, but people, that was how I even decided that I'll train people on C#. C#, I see it as like a Volkswagen. They'll tell you if you learn how to drive with Volkswagen, there's no other car you won't be able to drive. So that's the motive. It's the language might be different, but the process, the application, it's almost the same thing. So I'll say it's yes, your strength is C# because you've been trained on C#. But the people hiring you, they know that, okay, if this guy or this woman can actually do in C#, although he hasn't said she can do Java, but our application is much simpler than C#, so she should be able to cope. So yeah. The other question is, are the available jobs willing to sponsor Tier 2 visa?
In my current company, I do know a guy that they sponsored. Yes, there are some companies that will sponsor you because there are a lot of jobs out there. Yes.
And I think IT, software automation engineer, is actually part of short skilled, what's it called, worker, I think in the UK, if I'm still correct.
Yeah, you are.
So to say. All right. Any other question from anyone?
Yes, please.
All right. Go for it.
Hello. Good
Hello.
evening. Good
Hi.
evening, Oye.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. So I have a question, right? Because I'm currently on a BA course. But what you're saying about testing, because anytime you say anything testing, Python, this, that, somebody transitioning, because I was a teacher, right? I'm just transitioning into tech. No idea. I use basic computer, maybe PowerPoint once in a while to print documents for students. I'm not really into tech. So when you begin to make research, how can I get in? Let me use my 1 foot in to see if, I can be able to withstand the pressure. Then you start saying Python, programming language, that kind of make you take a step back. Like, you know what? I have to be realistic. If I'm going to transition, let me do the easiest one that would deal with me writing, which I've been writing lesson plan for over how many years. So that is a bit easier. But for you saying you're coming from a non-tech area, and is that, I don't think the reality is different from what you're saying, though. I might be wrong, but yeah, the reality is really, really different.
Okay, let me clarify. Your the speaker before me, he has said something. You should know what your strength is. Are you someone that is outgoing? Are you someone that can relate with people? Are you someone, those sort of things come in handy when you want to decide on which parts of IT you want to go into. So you would know where you're coming from. Like for myself, I'm not really someone that talks a lot. I like to hide a lot behind the scene. And with testing,
as well.
But you're a teacher. So that's the other thing I'm just thinking about.
It's just working with people give me anxiety. With kids, I'm perfect, but it gives me like, I do well with students, I do well with them. But once staff come in, it's like, I like to do my work privately, get it done, and not be the face. I don't know. That's just me, wired differently.
Okay, I think the most important thing is for each person, I think you need to really look inwards on where nobody is going to be able to, tell you. You have to be able to decide, since I'm not good with people, if you're not really good with people and you can't have a rapport whereby you can build it up, then business analyst or being a scrum master will probably not be the best option going forward. Business analysts and scrum masters or project managers are people that like to relate. They know how to be able to talk. They know how to get people on their side. If you don't know that, then it's better to sit behind the scene. You'll be spoken to once in a while because obviously you speak to your developers and you speak within the team, but you're not technically going out to sort anything from them. They've just given you what you need to do, and that's what you're focusing on. So everybody needs to know where their strength is so that they can then shine in their strength. With me, I knew I'm not friendly, to be honest. I'm only friendly with people I know. If I don't know you and I'm in a circle, I wouldn't say anything. So I knew straight away when I saw testing that, yes, this is where I need to be. Even right now, Scrum Masters are making loads of money right now. If I wanted to, I could easily jump into it. But I know I'm not friendly. So how am I going to react? Even sometimes when I'm talking, my voice is really harsh. And it's not like if I mean it to be harsh. I'm just naturally speaking like that because sometimes maybe I'm upset. Some people can, their face doesn't show it, neither do their tone show it. But with me, my face will tell you, my voice will tell you. So I'm not going to be good as a project manager or as a scrum master or a business analyst because I shouldn't come across harsh if I want to get my job done. But with the testing, I can speak to my developers and say, why are you doing that, But then we'll squash it because it's just between ourselves. I'm not going to high authority. With all of those other people, they have to speak to the CEO, COO, the top high. And you don't want your voice to be harsh with your CEO. Why is your voice harsh? It needs you to be able to relate in a sort of friendly manner. So find what sport you should be good at. If it's with regards testing and you think it's regarding the codes, like I said, the codes are repetitive. Everything, like when I started, I had a notebook for how to set up my framework and how to write my code because I realized that the code are the same pattern You're not using different things a lot. They are always the same. You're just repeating it. This is going to be the same thing for this next stage. So I had it. And then when I got to work, that is exactly what I use. Nothing is going to change. So there's no fearful reason of, this code, I'll meet something else tomorrow. No. It's the same thing you're writing. So that was why it was able to help me to understand. And like I can explain as well, when I was going into the first job I said I got, I trained using Java. But then when the recruiter called me and said the company, they are using C# at the moment, all I did, you also need to find your own spot. You also need to walk by yourself. Even though, you're getting trained, you need to go on YouTube, do research, find things out, do a lot of different things. So when he told me, all I just did was I went onto YouTube and I went to see what C# was about, how they set it up and everything. And by the time I got into the interview, when they were asking me, so what framework have you used and everything? And I said, I've used Java and C#. Because I realized that, like Akin also stated, they are very similar. Maybe one has capital letter, the other just has lowercase. That's the difference. But this is the same sort of code you are writing. And I think another reason I made that choice as well is, if I was going to be the only person using Java, if I encountered any issue, none of the developers will be able to help me with it because nobody is using Java. They were willing to pay for it or set me up on it. But I just realized this is going to be complicated eventually if I hit any hiccups, because nobody here is using it. So let me just use what they are using. And luckily for me, by the time I got in, also, I think prayer really helps with regards to any sort of job you're going to get into. Just be prayerful that the Lord should just direct your path, that wherever you're going to step into, you find favor. Because at a point in time, there were some codes that I had to actually write. And there was this guy at my workplace, even though he's a developer, but he has done all those things in the past, like testing, writing codes as a tester and all of that. And at the end of the day, he did most of my scripting for me. He turned my framework, the basic framework that I knew, it turned into a very high-tech one. The only thing is, like I said, if you know the basic, you'll be able to get it. It just showed me like, okay, this is what I've done. This is what you need to pull. And that's how I started continue using that framework. He even wanted to make it more complicated. I was like, no. Let's just leave it at this. This is good enough. And then we continued. So if God just directs us, even now, the current company I'm with, they moved me from one team to the other, and I sort of found it really hard. But luckily for me, there's this developer there. He's so patient, because once you don't really understand the business requirement, how are you going to be writing your test cases? And that was the issue I encountered, because I didn't really understand it. So I didn't really know although I will write it, but it's totally different from what they actually want. And then this guy because we have what we call a test design review. We do it with the testers and then we do it with the developers. It's just to give more coverage with regards to your test cases. And this guy will jump onto the call. It will be the one literally calling what I need to write in my test case for me. And then I'll just test it. So once you're directed, and if God just puts you in the right place, you just realize that it makes things very easy, because I was already saying, I have to leave that job because look, it's getting difficult for me. I'd rather go into another job. And then, things are panning out the way it should pan out. So once God directs your step, you as well should do your work. Once you're good in certain things, and once you're friendly and you're nice, you see, everything will just work out the way it should.
Thank you. Any other question from anyone?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I've always wondered this, so I need clarity on this. When you, as a tester, when you test and you find bugs and the developer fixes it, and after a while, everything is working well, what else are you going to be doing as an automation tester? Like, why didn't to keep you on the job? I don't. So I always wondered this.
Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so for a company, nothing is ever finished with a company. They always have projects that they're wanting to do, always. So that's why a lot of the time, like they've mentioned Agile. With Agile, it's easy for you to even know what they're doing with Agile, because when you go onto the board, you see all your product backlogs, and they already have a lot that is going on. So you'll be able to see that. With waterfall, I haven't actually worked in a waterfall environment before. I've worked in a team, I don't even think they have any sort of processes. Like, I don't think they've even got any sort of processes. But you just go along with whatever you have to test, and then, test it. So to answer your question, they always have a project. So they'll always keep you on because they need you. The only time they don't keep people on, let me explain this, is if you're a contractor. If you're a contractor and they feel that the work is not a lot anymore, they don't see any reason why they should pay you. So they'll let you go. But if you're a permanent staff, even if the job is not as much, they know that jobs are coming in. So they're going to need you they can't sack you because they know that there's a lot of jobs coming in for you to do. So at that point in time, they might say, okay, go on training, you're there. But I've never actually seen where it just stops wherever you're not doing anything at all.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just to add to that, yeah, as a contractor, probably you might be given 6 months, 1 year contract. Because they are paying you so much, they might not be able to afford you for a longer period of time. That is a contractor, right? Probably because they are paying you 350, 400, 500 pounds per day, right? And they brought you in because at that point, it's critical what they're doing for them to set up framework or whatever. But they might not have the money to keep you on for a longer period of time. But as a permanent, right? And meanwhile, before they let you go, they must have replaced you with a permanent staff. As a permanent staff, right? The work is it's not going to end. It's never unending, And even if you don't have, there will be always something, because most of the time you'll be working in Agile, they don't build everything at once. They build bit by bit. They might plan, it might be login and registration they want to build in this 2-week sprint. After that, they will deploy it to live. The other sprint might be customer basket. There will be something in the PBI that will always be planned into the sprint and you have to work on. Right. Even let's assume the worst case scenario. There's no ticket in the product backlog item, which is impossible. You still have to maintain your framework. It is your role is not only to write the script, but your role is also to maintain that script. What is called CI/CD? When you do a nightly build, like running your test once a day in the pipeline, it is your role as a tester when you come the following morning to check the pipeline to see how many tests are passing and how many tests are failing. Those that are failing, you need to do a root cause analysis, investigate why they are failing, and you have to fix them. Whether it's due to locator change or it's an actual bug, you need to investigate. So your role continues. Your role is never ending in any organization. It's only when you take up a contract role and they can't afford you anymore. That's when they can tell you, okay, we are not renewing your contract. But as a permanent staff, your role is never ending as a software automation tester. Any other question?
Yes, please. I got a question. Thank you so much, Oyin, for your exposures. It's for me, I think I've got this experience of having interviews where most of them are, you're going to be a lone tester, you don't even have a test manager. And before you know it, even while you think you're dishing out your best during the interview, just hearing that alone puts me in a panic mood. And I'm thinking, How can you be a cowgirl and they'll go and put you as the only tester in this kind of a project? Is that not calling for, problem and things like that? So I think it was while that question was on my mind, that's when you indicated that there was a role that you had and you were the only tester and you had just finished your training and things like that. So, but how would you kind of manage that kind of, setting where you know that the pressure will be so much on you, especially to deliver,
So I think I can relate to what you said. Like I said as well, I just finished training when I got this job, and obviously I as well felt there will be a lot of pressure, and I think that's what a lot of us tend to think, that when you get into the role, there'll be a lot of pressure. But what you realize is that when you get into the role, they would even be thanking you for being there because they feel that they really need you. And the good thing about it is you're not going into the role blindly because they've already given you, okay, for me, we didn't have a business analyst. So let me even break it down for you. There was no business analyst in play. So we didn't have like a business requirements that I had to work on. All I just had to do was, they're building a particular application at the moment. Once the application is ready, I will start testing. And once you're testing, there's no way, because the developers, they don't do testing. They only write in units. So they don't test the application at all. They just throw it out to you. There's no way you won't find bugs. And once you are finding bugs, that is what they're paying you for. Like if my developers get sort of, you can see they're getting a bit iffy because I'm finding bugs. My response to them has always been, but if I don't find the bugs, I won't be here. That's what they're paying me for. So are you not expecting me to be here? And we'll all just laugh about it. Because it's true. The only reason why they've eventually, because way back in the days, they just used to be developers. They never used to be testers. It was the developers that would test it. And because of their hard work, they never really used to find bugs. And if you remember way back in the days, there was a lot of fraudulent activities going on way back in the days because the systems were not tight. People could easily penetrate. And a lot of companies lost millions and billions due to that. And I think it was around that way that thought, what can we do to make this better? And that's why they then started employing testers. If anybody remember back in the days, and they used to pay testers a lot of money. It's not now that they've reduced the money. Testers used to earn a lot way back. And so when you get into the company, yours is, even if they don't have a business analyst and you're just going to be the lone tester, they have an application that they are building. So you just start testing that application. And while you're testing the application, you write down your steps of what you are testing. So basically, if you're going to be testing, we tend to use a lot of login, and because different applications apply, so we tend to use login and all of that. So obviously, if you're logging in, you have to write your scenario to say successful login, and then you've tested your login. If it's that they're adding a basket to like an e-commerce whereby the customer has to pay, you write that flow till the end. You test the flow till the end. So that's all you just need to do. And then you raise your bugs as accordingly to that. And you then see that everything will just start, flowing together, because you then be able to say, okay, this bug has been raised, who's going, because when you have your Scrum every morning, you tell them what you've done, and or maybe you don't even know who's going to be sorting out the bugs. So in Scrum, you'll be like, well, the bugs has been raised. I'm not sure what application they'll be using for test management. So you just like, it's been raised. Who should I assign the bugs to? Or you can speak to one of their developers, because what happens is if you're going to be the lone tester, you're going to be classed on, like I said before, they'll be classed under developers. So their manager will probably be your manager as well. So you just then be like, so who are you going to assign the bugs to so that I can retest it? And that's what you need to do. So I personally think being a soul tester is actually the best sort of job to go into when you're starting out. Because one, you get a lot of sort of support. They won't leave you in the dark because they obviously want to know what's happening. So especially when you join afresh, they're like wanting to help. And I think when you join afresh is the time that you should use that opportunity to find out a lot of things. Because you're, instead of you going like if you don't know anything, it will be like if you're going in because you don't understand the application. So you'll be asking a lot of questions. Oh, so what is this? What is that? It's because you don't really know it. But they would think it's because, oh, you're just coming in afresh and you don't understand how the application works. Even for any job, not even as a soul tester alone, any sort of job you go into, even if they've got quite a lot of testers, the first month is when you should be asking those questions. Once it's over 1 month or 2 months, they'll be looking at you now like, what's wrong with this person? Whereas maybe that's the time you think that you're settling in properly. Whereas that's the time they expect that you should have understood everything and you should be going. So the first month is when you are, and they like testers to ask questions a lot, especially when you're in your sprint planning. No matter how dumb it seems the question is, if you ask, to you it might seem dumb, but to them they're like, okay, this person, okay, yeah. And they will explain it to you and all of that.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you, Oyin. Just one final question, one last question, if anyone has got one final question to take home with. All right, no question. Thank you so much, Oyin. Really, really appreciate your time. And for clarity as well, we do thank you. We say thank you so much. So I hope everyone probably I don't know whether this session we've been able to learn 1 or 2 things from this session. And the bottom line is, if someone like me, if someone like Oyin, if someone like Dotun can do it, right? All of us transition, right? Then you can as well do it. Right. It does.
Hello, I have a confession, right? When you said the software tester will be coming in, my mind was like, oh God, can you just leave? That's not your side. But having listened to you, I'm glad I stayed. I'm so glad I stayed. Thank you so much, Oyin.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Oyin have given personally a lot of hope.
Confidence as well.
Confidence, each one. For the past 3-4 weeks, I've not been sleeping well. I think I will sleep very well tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Oyin.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Oyin. Yeah. You're welcome, everyone.
Yeah, so as I said, the bottom line is anyone can do it, seriously. With determination, hard work, nothing is impossible. Honestly, to me, I look at BA that honestly, this is so easy. Or the project management is because it's theoretical, right? It's just documentation. And if you have the skill of, mingling with people, communication skill, you are a people's person, then it's even much easier for you compared to software testing, whereby you are going from unknown, you are going from nothing, you have no clue, at all, to something different that you have to start from the very scratch. That's, to me, that to me is kind of tougher and difficult. But that being said, again, it's not impossible. I came from an accounting background with no technical knowledge, right? And I was able to do it. I was able to transition. I was not only transition, I train people now as well. This is someone who knows only debit and credit back in the days. I work in the industry, not only work in the industry, I train people as well to become like me. So anybody, regardless of the job path that you are on, whether project management, business analysis, software testing, never give up. That is the key, because the moment you give up, you don't know whether the next call is actually going to be your call or actually going to be your job. No's will come your way. No, unfortunately, sorry, we have someone that is better. You might get few calls like that, but the key thing is never give up. Never give up, because you don't know whether the next call you receive will actually be the breakthrough call. That being said, thank you everyone for taking your time to attend, and I hope everyone has learned one or two things from this session. Any final question from anyone before I say good night and enjoy your night?
Thank you, Mr. Aki, for hosting this meeting tonight as well. It's really improved a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so
much.
Yes.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Do have a lovely night, everyone.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.